came about, this came further. The reason I'm smiling is because it's inevitable, and it's perfectly legitimate that whenever you're doing things, advocacy groups and other members of the community will want to push you to do more. And that's the nature. The way I always like to put it is, when it comes to public education, the ocean is very, very big and the rowboat is small, and we just keep rowing as hard as we can.
Right, and you're rarely in a win-win, are you?
Well, you know, there's so much more you'd like to do in every one of these areas. I mean, physical education, in the arts, in lowering class size. They're all things that people would like to see, and we would love to see. And again, we'd love to see more focus on the issues we're talking about here. But what's happened in the last 3 years, working with the council and the advocacy groups, is to really move this issue in a big way. And of course there are things, additional things we can do, and I suspect over time we'll do.
And all of the advocates, whether they think what we've done is perfect, halfway there, three-quarters of the way, they're all at the table, and that's made for really good and robust conversations, and it's a big part of how we ended up where we are this week, and it's a bigger part of what will keep us moving forward, because they, in a way, are more ears to the ground than the Chancellor or I, because they're hearing from the young people when they get out of school, and they can really also help guide where we need to put more focus and more attention. But it was just very exciting today at the kickoff press event just to have such a hugely diverse group of New Yorkers standing behind us, rabbis, imams, reverends, Sikh Coalition, everybody there with a united message that everyone has to be respected in our public school system if children are going to have an ability to get a quality education.
Well, let's hope it has a lasting effect. Before we run out of time, a couple other school related issues I want to chat with both of you about. One is the student Metro cards, which you have been fighting for. Chancellor, what are we going to do if the kids don't get a ride to school in the morning?
Well, we're going to stay optimistic on this. There's one right solution here, is the students should get their Metro card. What's being fought about is who's going to pay what. But the students should get their Metro card.
Who's going to pay for it?
Well,
what do you propose, Speaker?
Well, we've proposed a plan that the MTA could use 10% of the federal stimulus money that they have gotten from the federal government. Chicago, Seattle, Washington, D.C., they've already used this part of the federal law that says you can use 10% of your federal capital money for operating if you're facing cuts. We think the MTA should do what those other cities did. That would allow us to say the Metro card and prevent other cuts. Now, I am still optimistic that that will happen. If it doesn't, or even if it does, first, after that, the state legislature needs to restore the cut they made in last year's budget to Metro cards. Some folks have said, well, should the city give more? That's a conversation I'm willing to have about city funding, but only after the state legislature makes the cut whole that they put in place last year. And all of those things need to happen. And, you know, I met a young girl, I was leafleting against the cuts to the MTA up in the Bronx. She lives in Brooklyn. She goes to a special high school in the Bronx for medical services. She was so excited. She showed me she got to wear scrubs to class. She wants to be a pediatric nurse. Her Metro card broke a couple months ago. She didn't go to school for a week because her parents don't literally have the extra money. So if these cuts by hook or crook, whoever pays for it, don't get restored, her dream is going to be much harder, and that's the real story here. It's not numbers on a paper. It's young women like this girl who wants to be a pediatric nurse.
Well, it's been on the table before and been saved before, so fingers crossed on this one, I guess.
Let's hope it's the right thing.
And one last topic, which we have to talk about because so many parents are talking about, is this bake sale issue in the public schools. So what is the deal? The kids can eat Doritos and Pop-Tarts, but no homemade goods, and how was that? That decision seems random, to be polite. And how?
Well, the Department of Health has a list of approved foods, and all of these decisions have a certain sense, if you will, of why this and not that. We're dealing with two issues, both of them are serious issues. On the one hand, obesity is a major problem in public schools. So if you start selling brownies during the lunch hour and the kids eat the brownies and so, which goes on, then you have the kind of problems that the health department and we are concerned about.
Right, but the question is, are Doritos any better?
Yeah, well, actually, they are. I mean, that's why I say the health department comes up with a
grain or something?
They come up with a list. And second of all, we want to allow fundraisers. So we had cut off all the Doritos and everything like that. And we got a lot of pushback from a lot of student clubs. And so now we've opened up. I actually met with, I have a thing called the Chancellor Student Advisory Committee, and they were very helpful on this. And whenever you're trying to balance two real interests, both of which are important, you'll never get it perfect. But for example, federal law bars the selling of candy. Now, chocolate brownies and chocolate Hershey bars are not very different either. So you could say, why brownies and not Hershey bars? And it's those kind of lines that are always imperfect. But what we can do to try to make sure our kids eat nutritious lunches and don't eat a lot of the kind of junk food that really creates and reinforces the obesity problem. 40% of the kids in New York City have major issues in this area.
Yeah, but the public schools need the money. I mean, and so the other argument is, so we bake some brownies. It's an activity you do with your children. It's something you're selling in the lobby. Is it really any less healthy than a bag of Doritos?
Well, again, if you look at the caloric contents and the fat contents, they are, and that's what we base it on. It's not a perfect line, but I think
I'm going to go home and tell my kids that the school's chancellor says Doritos are good for them.
Have them send me an email, and I'll talk it through with them myself. I don't think we need an intermediary here.
All right. It's great to speak with both of you, and good luck with your initiative this week. Sounds like a great program. It is time for us to take a break. Up next, now that